Alright, I already did this once. The camera angle just wasn't good enough. You couldn't see what I was doing. So I'm going to do it again real quick. Just be advised, it's already lubed up really well. I take the bolt carrier all the way apart, and I take the extractor out, and I put grease inside of that. It's not really something that everybody does, but I can tell you it does. It works just fine. There's an over lubrication myth. It is a myth. Even Larry Vickers destroyed that with his, just dumped it in a bucket of oil to get it work. Get grease down in there, grease in every spot, get it on these locking lugs. Get it nice and oily there, and take a little bit more, put it on the extractor, on that spring on the extractor. If you got the little rubber donut on the extractor, you can put it on there too. It's not going to hurt it. And you put that back together. If you need to lube the pin a little bit, it's usually there's enough on your fingers that it's not a big deal. And you just squeeze it, put it back into place. One thing that is kind of difficult is, well, it's not really that difficult obviously, is you can't see the hole because it's full of grease when you're putting that that pin back in, but it's not a big deal. So, alright, bolt is assembled, so the carrier group, alright, or the carrier. So, I get grease down in the end here, all the way down in there, and basically over the entire outside of the bolt carrier group. Now a lot of people are like, man, you don't want that grease or sand and stuff is gonna go in it. You know what? It'll hold sand just fine. It doesn't hold sand like an axle grease does. It actually sheds it pretty well. It's also, and I've shot this suppressed, and I've shot it on full autos and all that kind of stuff. This works very well. So you can lube the firing pin. Not a huge deal with it. Some people are like, no lube on the firing pin, no lube on the firing pin. Well, that doesn't make any sense, because if once you shoot it, if you have any lube in it, you're going to get lube on the firing pin. So don't read too much into that. Okay. So I grease the whole thing, reassemble it. If you want like detailed instructions on how to reassemble, you know, there's about 1,000 different of those on YouTube. So hit those up. Or you can ask me, I can tell you how to do it. But alright, full assembly back together. Then also in all those little spots, I take the Extreme Weapons lube, spray it down in the cam pin hole, around the end, even in the gas key. Basically anywhere. It'll help turn some of that grease into a little bit thinner, and it'll make it run down in there easier, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want it that greasy, I don't want it that greasy. Well, like, well, these guns they'll run dirty, but they do not like to run dry. So run them wet, real wet. Alright, done with the bolt carrier group. Next thing we'll go into is the upper receiver. I get my trusty little paintbrush with my Extreme Weapons grease, get it way down in there. All down in the charging handle channel, on the sides, in the void where the cam pin rotates, and in those locking lugs. You don't have to you don't want to jam it up there in the chamber or anything like that. By the time it gets up into the chamber, it'll be thin and it won't make any issue. So don't worry about it. I grease the forward assist. If you don't use the forward assist, you should be using the forward assist. I've needed one several times. If you haven't needed it, you haven't shot it enough. So, alright. That one's done, and I get plenty of that grease in. Put it down inside of the channel of the charging handle. Pretty much can't get too much lubricant on this thing. It'll all fall off before you can get too much. Get it all over it, nice and thick, and throw a little bit of the thin stuff on the inside and the outside. Slide it back in, put my bolt carrier group in, and I'll even take some and put it on this detent on the door. Yeah. It's going to be covered in grease anyway after a few shots, so don't get too stingy with it. It's not going to hurt it. Alright. Done for the most part with the upper receiver. I also like to take this and put it up in the brake. That gives you a few rounds to keep the all the copper and stuff, all the carbon and stuff from corroding on the outside there of the phosphate finish. Then I slide a muzzle cap over it. There's a couple of different options out there, but I like these. You shoot these off if you want to. You can take them off if you want to. If you want to shoot it off, it doesn't change your point of impact. So, alright. Lower receivers where I really like it, which is funny way to say that. I take grease, put it down inside of the bolt catch here, move it up, put it down in there, plenty in there. Around the mag release, in there, around the safety, and on the trigger. And I'll also take the spray stuff and get it down in there too. And all those spots. I even put some on the D10 of the buffer. Now, the buffer's the fun part. I'll actually take the weapons lube, spray it down into the buffer tube. Then I'll take the buffer itself and coat it with the grease really well. This really helps eliminate that clang, clang, clang you hear when you're shooting somebody's gun that's dry. I don't know what that really sounds like because I don't do that. I don't shoot a dry gun. I shoot like I'm nice and wet. Alright, put that guy back in there. A little on the front, that's great. Not a big deal. Alright. Then we do the basic reassemble. You're like, oh, that's a lot of grease. Yes, it will work just fine for a long time. Remember, if you don't have time to clean your guns all the time, or just don't want to clean them all the time, this will work. This works great. So, again, what I'm using is Slip 2000 Extreme Weapons Grease and Extreme Weapons Lubricant. I don't get any money from these guys, so don't take it in that way. I've just been using these for years. For at least the last 2.5 years. When I first started teaching out there, I was using a different lubricant, and when I loaned out a gun, I'd put it in the safe, have another class in a few months, and it would be Gumball City or Glass City. That lubricant would just lock right up after sitting for a long time. One thing we'd like to do, I took from Paul Howell, is take a magazine, insert it in the mag well, put a mark around that, and then take it out, and you got that mark, and I'll take foam tape and wrap it all around there. And so when you load this magazine up, put it in there, this gun's ready to go, and it's completely sealed up. Chamber's closed up, muzzle end's closed up, and your magazine well's closed up. So if you're on a helicopter landing, or what's more likely here in Texas is to be in a helicopter hunting hogs, and you land somewhere and dust and grass and everything goes everywhere, ain't getting in the gun. Make it on the outside, but that's about it. Also, I like to take a little oil on a rag and just wipe the whole thing down. Helps keep things from sticking to it as easily. I know that sounds weird, but water runs off of it and mud and all that stuff. And if something does land on it, like dust and dirt, it just wipes off nice and easily instead of grating into the finish. If you care about that. If you don't worry about it. So, do a function check, take the magazine out, function check. Everything seems to work just fine. Gun's nice and smooth, and I'm going to have a long time of service before I need to clean it again. So, hope you like this. If you former military or law enforcement, you may not like this. That's fine. But this will alleviate the problem of putting the gun in the safe and then bringing it out a while back later and it not functioning. So, hope you guys like it. Check us out online. Come to class if you want to do it.